Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of individuals to attend, and given the notice that they can attend the bodies of which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. Notices announcing the date, time, and place for this meeting were sent to all concerned individuals, associations, and sent to Union County local source in accordance with Chapter 231 PL 1975. At this time, I will take the roll. President Bonner.
Here.
Vice President Cólon.
Here.
Chow.
Here.
Ms. Cólon.
Here.
Ms. Justice.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Ms. Wagner.
Here.
Everyone is here, including Ms. Miller.
Yes, sorry, I was
Your
being
meeting.
distracted.
Outstanding. We have a lot of good stuff to say and present tonight and talk about. So we are excited to do that, and we're going to kick it off with our SEF Fall 2021 grant presentation.
Good evening. My name is Heather Thomas, and I am this year's SEF Grants Chair. I am very excited to be speaking here tonight on behalf of SEF. We have an amazing collection of grants approved for the fall cycle. We continue to be very impressed by the creative and innovative grant requests from our district teachers and administrators across all 9 schools. Despite the complex challenges created by the pandemic, our district has shown an exceptional ability to adjust and adapt so that our students continue to receive the best education possible. SEF is extremely proud to be in this great partnership with the district as we work together to support the academic, social, and emotional needs of our students and staff. I am pleased to announce the Summit Educational Foundation is awarding 33 grants totaling over $183,000 to the Summit Public Schools for the fall grant cycle. Since its inception over 30 years ago, SEF has awarded nearly $8 million in teacher and district grants. In just the past 5 years alone, we have awarded over $2.7 million in grant awards. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the many people who have contributed to this success. First, I would like to thank our Superintendent, Scott Huff, Director of Education, Jen McCann, Supervisor of Technology, Doug Orr, and Assistant Superintendent for Business, Lou Pepe, for their guidance and continued support. I would also like to thank SEF co-presidents Maggie Bauman and Amy Burke, as well as Dawn Rumpel, our Assistant Grants Chair this year, for their invaluable help and support throughout the grant cycle, as well as the entire SEF board and committee members for their commitment to this exceptional organization. I would also like to thank all of our wonderful teachers and supportive administrators for submitting creative and innovative grants every cycle that enhance the curriculum and support the Board of Ed's goals to maximize each and every student's learning experience. Your dedication to our students is truly amazing. It is the main reason our children are receiving a top-notch education, and our school district continues to be highly regarded in the state and in the nation. And finally, we would like to recognize and thank the families and the Greater Summit community for their continued support, especially during the last 2 years. It is through your charitable donations that we can continue our mission of supporting the district's curriculum and goals. It is the Summit community's commitment to excellence that makes the Summit Educational Foundation possible. Thank you. Our strong fall grant cycle is a good sign that our schools and teachers are getting back to some degree of normalcy. The grant requests are much more reflective of our transition to an in-person learning model this school year. Many of the grants are for the continuation of programs successfully implemented somewhere in the district, while others are pilots or new ideas that can be spread throughout the district in the future if deemed beneficial to our students. Our grants tonight will be presented to align with the district's focus across 6 areas: culturally inclusive programming, math and language arts focus, STEAM, learning through innovation, social and emotional learning, and learning environment. Now let's take a look at some of the exciting grants approved for the fall cycle in these categories. In culturally inclusive programming, we have 2 grants this cycle totaling $1,950. The 5th graders at Franklin will pilot a program from the Museum of Indian Culture. An educator will give a live presentation at the school and then take them through a hands-on activity about the Lenape tribe. For the popular multicultural night at the middle school in May, SEF will fund a grant for students and families to experience the amazing sounds of a live 4-piece mariachi band. This event is scheduled to return to a live format after a 2-year hiatus due to the pandemic. In the area of math and language arts focus, SEF will fund a grant from the district literacy coaches for Shifting the Balance professional development books for all district kindergarten through 2nd grade teachers to help bring the science of reading into the balanced literacy classroom. The Multisensory Math Materials Grant will establish a lending library in each primary center where teachers can access the tools to assist kindergartners who need additional help learning basic number skills. SEF will also fund a grant submitted by the district ideas teacher for logic and reasoning games for our students in grades 1 through 5 across all 5 elementary schools. This cycle, SEF has funded 4 grants that will provide our striving readers with an expanded selection of book choices. The high-interest, low-level book grant for the Learning Workshop students in grades 3 through 5 at Washington Elementary will establish a library of appropriate level books that visually appear to be on the same level with their peers, but are at the appropriate reading level of each student. SEF will provide funding for a 1st grade classroom at Lincoln Hubbard to expand its selection of just right nonfiction and decodable text, and for the 5th grade students at Washington Elementary to purchase sets of popular fantasy books to support their fantasy book reading club. The Mad for Manga grant at the middle school will expand the selection of manga book titles for all students and support the newly formed manga book club. Under the STEAM heading, we have 8 awards totaling just a little over $34,000. We have several exciting art-focused grants this cycle. SEF will be funding an art center and an art library in each of the 7 kindergarten classrooms at Wilson Primary Center. The Artist Workshop Series for students at the middle school and the high school will provide unique hands-on workshops in the disciplines of Reiku, portraiture, and printmaking. The Geometric Art Project at Washington Elementary will combine the 4th grade art and math units to ultimately build a larger-than-life geometric structure on school grounds in this very innovative STEAM pilot. SEF will provide funding for a pug mill for the high school ceramics studio and will continue their support of the Summit High School Art Magazine. The Calling All Engineers grant at Lincoln Hubbard will provide funds to create individual STEAM bins for every 3rd grade student to promote creativity and problem-solving skills. All 5th grade classes at Washington Elementary will engage in a STEAM project to build a biosphere that models an ecosystem that could sustain life on Mars. And SEF will fund an extracurricular select vocal ensemble, Cola Voce, at Summit High School. Under the Learning Through Innovation heading, we have 3 awards totaling $16,707. SEF will fund a 1-year site license for Moat at the middle school and the high school. This is an online tool that provides voice comments and audio content to share documents and includes transcription in more than 20 languages and a STEM mode for mathematical and scientific languages. SEF will also fund a 1-year subscription to Comics Plus, which is a digital collection of thousands of comics, graphic novels, and manga for middle school students. SEF will support an innovation to the PE curriculum at Washington Elementary by granting funds for a Gaga pit. Under the Social and Emotional Learning head, we have approved 4 grants totaling $13,478. Our students will benefit from grants that support their social and emotional needs, especially during the challenging times created by the pandemic. SEF will fund a grant that gives students unlimited access to a certified therapy dog at Franklin, the middle school, and the high school. In addition, Lincoln Hubbard 1st graders will have weekly visits from a creature comfort therapy dog in each of their classes. Research supports the use of therapy dogs in the school setting. They have been shown to have a positive impact on the academic, emotional, and behavioral needs of students. SEF will provide funds for an additional autoacoustic emission screening device for the district nursing staff. This will greatly help streamline their auditory screening processes across the district. SEF funded their first device in fall of 2018. SEF will continue to support the middle school peer leadership program by providing funds for an additional advisor so that the great work of this highly successful program continues uninterrupted. Our last category, learning environment, is our largest award category, similar to the spring cycle. We have 9 grant awards totaling over $103,000. SEF will fund front row Juno systems in all academic classrooms at the middle school to provide clarity of teacher instruction and decrease background noise for all students. SEF has funded these systems in many elementary classrooms across the district over the past few grant cycles, and the feedback from the staff has been overwhelmingly positive. SEF will also be funding new furniture for 3 elementary level classrooms and 1 high school mathematics classroom. Students at the primary centers and Lincoln Hubbard Elementary will benefit from the installation of the sensory pathway in their hallways. These pathways have been shown to increase students' self-regulation, attention span, and focus during the school day. SEF previously funded this at Jefferson and Washington elementary schools in the spring of 2019. And again, with this, the feedback has been very positive. As you can see from the approved grants this cycle, Summit's teachers and administrators continue to find innovative and creative ways to enhance the education of our students and support the district's curriculum and goals. With the support of our broader community, SEF will continue to partner with the district on these goals and future initiatives. After 35 years, SEF grants continue to create possible for our students. Again, I am pleased to announce the Summit Educational Foundation is awarding $183,192 in district grants for the fall 2021 cycle. Thank you very much. I don't know. We went.
Okay. If I can get a big check before I roll off the board, that would be awesome. So welcome everyone. As I said, we have a lot of good news and some good things to say tonight, so we're going to continue with that. And so right now, we're going to take a little pause in the official action of the board meeting, and we're going to get some comments from my colleague, Mr. Cólon, referencing Mr. Lou Pepe. Wherever you want to.
So we already had my retirement party.
I know, we did. This won't be a roast, Lou. I promise you. So it is appropriate for us to say a few words here on the retirement of Mr. Pepe. And so I'm going to start with my beginning, which is a little bit after Lou's beginning, with respect to my introduction to Lou, which came as Mayor Radest snuck in the back door here a few minutes ago. It came in a conversation that I had with Mayor Radest as I was contemplating joining the board. And so we were speaking about my background in finance. And she had mentioned to me when I said that, she said, well, you're going to love the person who's responsible for finance and operations for this district. He is fantastic, I think was the word that was used. And he's the best. And those words I've learned to be true, and very prescient words, and I have worked well with him. And so that was my introduction before ever having met with him. A few months later, I joined the board, and there was work to be done. And I needed to gain a deeper understanding of school finances, which are a little bit different from the corporate world and corporate finances. And so I scheduled, and I'm sure he was thrilled for me to do this, I scheduled a 2-hour meeting with him to dig into every nuance of the district's finances. And so I met in his office, and he graciously accepted, and we met that week. And we started diving into a lot of gory detail that I will not repeat in this forum. But it became very evident, after 10, 15 minutes of conversation that not only did Lou know what he was doing, but his understanding of what was going on in this district and his finances were exceptional. Extremely knowledgeable and competent, and also very effective in conveying that knowledge to me. And so I appreciated that, but there were other things that I learned in that meeting that were actually more important. And so sitting in his office, you see pictures of his family everywhere. And so Lou is a dedicated family man. And if you want to spend a lot of time speaking with Lou, you can talk about the books that he's authored. If you want to spend an enormous amount of time speaking with Lou, you talk about his family and his grandkids and his kids, whom he adores. And so I learned this about him very quickly as well. I also learned he's a fan of the Denver Broncos, which I still don't understand, but I've accepted that. And another important point, which has come up over the years, is Lou's dedication to our country and appreciation for his service to our country, which we certainly appreciate. And that's also evident in him owning the largest flag that I've ever seen in a house, which is at least twice as big as anything I've seen in the White House as well. So it's enormous. And so I learned all these things about Lou. And then there was something else that I learned, which came up in the school board, the annual school board meeting that's held in Atlantic City. And I'm not going to go into the details of everything that takes place in Atlantic City, but I will say that having, spent a few days with Lou going to off-sites and meeting with a lot of the people that contribute to this district and its functioning from various other places and vendors, etc., Lou knows everyone. He knows everyone in this state with respect to operations and finance of a school district. It was fascinating. He literally was the master of ceremonies at this event in Atlantic City. Everyone was attracted to him and wanted to speak with him. He was a magnet. And so it was great to actually spend time with him to get to meet a lot of people who are engaged in the business of school operations and finance in the state. And now, having spent 4 years working closely with Lou in the operations committee, I came to learn, to really understand why there's this level of affection and respect that he has throughout the state of New Jersey for the work that he does in operations. It could be a function, as I'd mentioned earlier, of his competence with respect to all things finances and operations. It could be all the books that he's authored. I suppose that could be a factor. I'm not quite sure if it's his good looks and his debonair style. But I come to one thing. There's one thing that distinguishes him, and that one item is integrity. It stands above all else. Again, having worked with Lou, his interest rests not with taking credit for anything, not with anyone's perception of him. It is solely to do what is right for his organization. Always. And there's with respect to integrity, there is the element of how you go about doing that. And again, always, Lou is always treating people with the highest level of respect and always wanting to do things the right way and fortunately, for Summit, because that's where he spent the majority of his career and last, how long, 10 plus years, Lou? 13 years, so we've benefited from that. And so, just to come full circle, on behalf of former board members and our current board, I'd like to thank you for who you are, for what you've done for our district, for how you've left our district in terms of a strong business office, the financial stability that we have, and how this district functions, which again is exceptional. So I thank you for that. And most importantly, I want to thank you for what you have done for our students, which is why we're all here today. And so all of that has been exceptional, and I personally can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So Lou, we flew the mayor in. She has some words for you. So I'd like to invite Mayor Radest up to the podium.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. As you all probably know, many of you do, the Board of Education and the educational system in Summit is near and dear to my heart, having served on the board too many years ago that I'd like to claim. And the role that the business administrator, now assistant superintendent, serves is incredibly important. We are, as most of you know, I'm sure, a type 1 district, which means that the citizens do not vote on our school budget, but rather the Board of Ed, 2 members, the mayor, and 2 members of council. So it is absolutely critical that the business administrator, the finance guru, has the trust of the people that are voting on that budget and is consumed with transparency. And Lou is that. We all like to ask a lot of questions, and he has to deal with council members that come and go every couple of years, and some ask more questions than others, and he's the epitome of a professional and simultaneously a gentleman, because not all questions are asked nicely. Not all answers that he gives are received well, but Lou keeps an even keel, and he treats everyone with the utmost respect. Ask him a question and be ready for the answer, because he has all the data points that you're possibly ever going to want. And it's a pleasure to come to these meetings during the budget season, and you've got all the information out there, and you're comparing us to our communities around us. We're doing so very well. You are constantly looking out for our students. And it's a dual, as you all know on the Board of Ed, when we talk about this, it's a dual role. You have to be aware of the needs of the students, as well as your responsibility to the citizens and the taxpayers. So it's a balance. But Lou, you never pull any punches. You are honest as the day is long. Your integrity is amazing. And I certainly appreciate the transparency, because that really matters in a type 1 district, more than anything else. And because of your ability to be so clear and honest, and this man knows where every penny is in the budget, and you're not afraid to share where those pennies are. There have been business administrators in other districts, and maybe even Summit, I don't know, who may know where those pennies are, but don't want to share it. And that's what makes you a cut above the rest. And of course, your integrity. So the city doesn't usually come in and say anything when a business administrator, assistant superintendent leaves. But I felt it was really important, because you have done so much for our district, and then therefore for our community, that I could not let you leave without letting you know how grateful the Summit residents and the community is to you. You're the best. Please come up. I'd like to give this to you.
Appreciate it. That was really nice. I'm gonna take the check.
So here's to your wonderful retirement. I hope you've got great plans. Whatever they are, hope to take a little time, relax. You deserve it. You've just been a remarkable career, and we're very, very grateful to you.
I can say is it is so easy to work in a place with great people. From the mayor, the council, the boards that I've worked with over the years, the superintendent, it makes it easy. Mr. Getzendanner, when I first met him, he was on the council. He's one of the people who ask me a lot of questions
I'm sure.
all the time. But it's great to be in a place like this and to be able to have this as the last part of my big career. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Lou, because of your contributions to the district over the past 13 years, we're not done yet. I'm going to turn to my left and afford individual board members the opportunity to have a few words in your honor, so bear with us. We're going all the way down the table.
You're going to have to make the time up, though.
I'll make it. We've been working together for 6 years. You know I'm going to make the time. Anyone to my left?
Hello, Lou. I would like to say, even as a new board member, not having the opportunity to have the relationships that other people have had with you, I will say, in my first introduction to you, I felt the care that you felt for this community. I felt the care that you felt for this board, and that you really treasure each and every person involved in making this school district the best school district it can be. So that, for you to have given that to me in the meeting that we had, really says a lot, because I have only known you for a very short time. So that speaks to the person that you are, and I really am sad that I won't have the opportunity to work with you longer, but I so appreciate you, your passion, and your dedication to this community. So thank you.
Lou, I've had the good fortune and pleasure of working with you on the Ops Committee since I first joined the board last year. And it was clear from the very first meeting that your expertise, dedication, and focus on maximizing the financial resources of the district for the benefit of our students and staff are simply unparalleled. I've learned a lot the last 18 months. The story is so short. And going forward, I think when future ops meetings, I'll always be thinking in the back of my head, what will Lou do or recommend? I'll do my best to carry on the tradition and from the board perspective. Thank you again for your service, and don't change your cell phone.
I won't. Thank you.
Lou, I'm going to try to do it without crying. I met you in 2008 when I was a PTO president, and since that time, you have done so much to guide me with your expertise, not just, again, as PTO president of Brighton and LCJSMS and the high school, but as, you know, a captain's mom in a sports situation. You have always been there to guide, to share your expertise, and to help me get something done, not just well, but with integrity, the right way, the Summit way. And so I thank you for that. And I could never have done what I needed to do within this body last year had you not stayed. I know you stayed likely longer than you had planned. And for that, I will be forever grateful, because we could have never done it without you. So thank you very much.
Thanks. Down to my right side. Primary.
I don't think I'm getting through. So when we first met in preparation for my first meeting, I kept asking you questions. I heard a lot about the questions, and you kept telling me that wasn't important. And I think for anyone who knows me, you know how I reacted to that, which wasn't well. And we just spent the first few months circling each other, even though we weren't on a committee together. Then we went to the famous Atlantic City that Michael mentioned, and walking through these vendor fairs, which is all these people who work with the district in different capacities, and they're all seeing someone, and they're so excited. They're like, oh, you're in Lou Pepe's district, you're in Lou Pepe's district. It was just, and I said, okay, clearly I have gotten something, like clearly there's just a disconnect, and I gotta figure this out, because, and it was that trip that we kind of figured that out. And since then, you have just been my rock, my biggest supporter in all of this. And even when the topics that we thought were tough at the time turned out to be not so tough as others pandemic came up. you mean to me. You know what you and your family means to me and my family. And I wish you a lot of joy and luck. And I did tell Lou after that first conference, I said, next year I'm crossing out Summit and I'm writing Lou Pepe's district. And I did. There really aren't words and thank yous, but just know that so grateful on everyone.
Thanks. Yes.
So I guess everybody can tell that Lou meets with the new board members as they come in for kind of an initial meeting before the first meeting, so we know what to expect. And in our meeting, I knew I was going to like you immediately when you told me your Meyer-Briggs designation. And I was like, Lou is the executive type. I hope I don't mind sharing. He's the what you would call the executive type. And I just knew that I was going to like you from that moment when you shared that with me. You know, in your job, you have to, a lot rides on the decisions that you make. A lot rides on the decisions that you make. And in my short time knowing you, I can see that the decisions that you make come from a place of firm precision based on the facts. And you are a man of integrity, as many of us have said tonight, and I actually wrote it down in my notes too. So I think that it is one takeaway that we can all agree on. You'll stand by your facts, even if you know that the people that you're sharing them with may not like them, they may not want to hear them. You stand by the facts. And I just want to say that, when I deal with you, I know that you're the kind of guy that embraces the values of honesty, dedication, dignity, and you're really valued on the clear advice that you give us and your guidance. So again, as everybody else, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for everything you do for this district and for the kids that this district serves. And I mean, as a mother, I want to thank you because it impacted my own child. So we will miss you. Thank you for all your service.
Thanks, Melanie.
All right, I get the honor to go last, not because of anything other than I'm the president. So real briefly, my first exposure to Lou was after Mayor Radest asked me to serve on the board. I think I said yes, and I went to a board meeting to kind of get the lay of the land, see what was going on, and it was a budget meeting. It was about this time, maybe a month ago from now or so, and some folks were asking some really difficult questions about portions of the budget, and they were relatively small items, but as you know, in this town, we're very conscious of the numbers. And I forget the conversation, but somebody had asked a question and wanted a very kind of an odd answer to that question. And Lou turned to that person and looked them right in the eye and said, "Tough," meaning we're moving forward with this. I appreciate your contributions, but this is going to happen. And so I certainly knew at that moment I was going to be it was going to be an interesting ride. But in that moment, I knew I liked him for whatever reason. By the way, portions of tonight's meeting are sponsored by Building the Right Team by Louis J. Pepe.
Available on Amazon.
Where all 5 books are sold. If we run out of Building the Right Team, you can also buy Problem Solving Today. Again, available where all fine books are sold. So I just want to briefly speak to why I admire you and look to you as a mentor. As many of you might know, Lou and I do the same work in different places, and he's certainly been doing it longer than I have, and I've learned a ton in my 6 years as a board member. That being said, I'm not here to roll out a laundry list of Lou's contributions to the district. I'm not sure we would all be able to be in the same room with him after that was over. I'm not here to outline all the years of Lou's budget, all the years that Lou's budget beat inflation, all the years he stayed under the cap or created cap space to go over when we needed it. All the years he managed skyrocketing healthcare costs, unfunded mandates. All the times he outperformed his peers on budget increases, skillfully dealt with the rising costs of technology, including cyber attacks and the management of one-to-one devices. I'm not here to go down that list because I've only known Lou for 6 years, but that was enough time to know that Lou was not here to keep our taxes low. He was not here to keep our home values high or real estate agents' commissions high. Lou was not motivated by the numbers of families moving from the city to Summit. He was not motivated by us getting the best prices for our homes when we sell them when our kids graduate. In the 6 years that I have worked with Lou, 3 of them on the operations committee, Lou never once recommended any cuts to existing programming. He truly was and continues to be motivated by leveraging his strengths to ensure the best academic and social and emotional outcomes for kids. He has been laser focused in that way. His work in Summit truly exemplifies the meaning of equity, where every student gets what they need. On behalf of my own daughter and the tens of thousands of students who have benefited from your work, I sincerely thank you. If you stick around after the closed session tonight, Lou is going to read portions from this
No, he's not.
for donations to the SEF.
Okay, maybe.
Okay, moving on. We have Mr. Lurch here to talk about our audit, which conveniently has been placed in the right place.
Yeah,
as we
but
talk about Lou.
before we pull him up, do we want to accept the actual money from the SEF?
Yes, let's do that. We can do that now.
So I just need a motion and a second on that, Mr. President.
All right, so moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody not want the check? Okay, passes.
All right.
Thank you, SEF. Now we can go to the
All right.
auditor.
Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So we're here tonight to discuss the results of the recent audit, which ended June 21st of 2020, June 30th of 2021. Let me just start by saying that this, I believe, is the third year in a row, it's at least the third year in a row where the audit's being discussed, yet you do not have a formal document. You do not have the final document itself. And the reason for that is that as the auditors, we rely on certain information that is being presented and developed by the Division of Pensions, which comes through the state of New Jersey. And now this happens to be, like I said, this is now the fourth year that we had to implement GASB 75, which is a pronouncement from the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. And it requires us to put certain documentation, footnote disclosures, as well as on behalf payments through the district-wide financial statements on really the portion that the state's paying on the medical benefits for each district. So the state pays for the medical benefits of the employees of the State of New Jersey Board of Educations. And what they do is they go through this report and then they allocate a portion to each school district. That allocation then has to be reported in your financial statements and run through on the district-wide financial statements. Well, we're continuing to wait for that data. The latest I know is that that information is still being held up on the municipal side. And believe it or not, the municipal side for most municipalities, that fiscal year ended December of 2020. So we're almost coming up on a year that information hasn't been released on the municipal side. On the Board of Ed side, which are all these junior ends, the information has not been released. They would not even clarify as to when they expect the information to be released. Previous years, it's been released in the end of December. It's been released in January as well as February. So generally speaking, what happens is once that data is released, then there's a 45-day delay as to when the reports have to be submitted to the Board of Education in the state of New Jersey. That timeline has been moved back because of COVID by legislation. So it used to be December 5th, now it's February 5th, but that certainly may be a moving date as well. But the reason that we're here today, because other than it's Lou's final retirement meeting, but no, the reason we're really here is that we've completed the audit work. So we've gone through all the audit testing. We have our final results. We have the results of fund equity, which is important for you, for a board. So those financial information, the financial data, the comments, recommendations, any findings, all of that has now been established and is not going to change. So we feel comfortable presenting to the board. The only thing, you're not able to accept anything because you don't have a formal report in front of you. So when that formal report does materialize, obviously, if you want us to come back and discuss anything, we will, but really nothing's going to change from what I talk about tonight. It's just going to be, again, dealing with this GASB issue. So, of all the opinions, and there's 3 opinions in the financial statements that you will be receiving, they are unmodified opinions, which are clean opinions. So that is terrific. You want to see that. We have no significant deficiencies on internal controls that were noted during the audit. So again, that's exactly what each board member should be expecting and aspiring to. The district was subject to a state and federal single audit. What that really means is that anytime you expend more than $750,000 in either federal or state, you have to have and do alternative auditing procedures on those specific grants, just to give you a sense of what you spent and collected. On the federal side, you spent $3.1 million of federal grants. We did some specific auditing there. And on the state side, it was $18.4 million that came through. And having just realized with the local program, and Summit is clearly, in all the clients that I do, a very active local program, local grants, to the tune in this particular audit year of $863,000 that was contributed and spent through the system. And that's just off the charts when I compare it to any of the other districts that I represent. So hands down, just a nice thing to say. So what is new for this particular year as well? As I said, we're waiting on these GASB 75 numbers. We have a new pronouncement. We have GASB 84 this particular year. And the Governmental Accounting Standards Board now has defined fiduciary funds a little bit differently, what they've been defined in the past. So when you do get the report, you'll see some of the information has changed. What we used to separate out in a fiduciary funds which would be student activity, revenues and expenses, scholarship activity, unemployment, and payroll used to be all separate and not run through your operating funds. Now, underneath the new GASB 84, the student and scholarship activities are going to run through the special revenue fund, and the unemployment and payroll is going to run through the general fund. So that's just a little bit of a nuance. And we had to restate some of the opening balances because of the implementation of this new pronouncement. So food service, just some of the highlights, food service, little or no sales because we know because of COVID, so food service really was all provided through state, really federal grants, the funding of that program. The summer flash program limited again because of COVID. And what I'll do now is I'll talk a little bit about fund equity. And for those board members, and it doesn't matter because I'll just speak in general terms, but what I did have Lou hand out was the Exhibit C1, and the Exhibit C1 is a budgetary comparison schedule. I'm going to work off the last page, and the last page is the results. So with the Board of Education, we actually have financial data presented 3 different ways. Believe it or not, this is how this has evolved over the last 25 years. So C1 is, again, this is really your budget statement. So this is the document. I think this is a key document for all board members and for the public, because what happens, this is the budget. I know we're not voting on a budget, but this is the budget that is approved and adopted, and it provides the results of the budget versus actual. So when I get to the very end on page 75 for the board members on C1, under the actual column, it'll show what the total equity is. So at the end of June of 2021, the total equity was $11,826,768. That was an increase of $803,998. And then we have the allocations of where those funds go. And what is new this year is that the unassigned fund balance on the very bottom, and I'll work my way up here, the unassigned fund balance is $3,556,794. This is new this year. The amount, the limitation has increased. It's doubled. It was 2%, and now because of legislation, it's at 4%. So that number for you actually went up from about 1.6 million to the roughly $3.6 million. So it provides an additional cushion for you down the road if you need to appropriate fund balance. That statute has a limitation or a sunset provision, so it's 2 years. If it doesn't change, I have no idea whether or not that will sunset or whether there'll be an extension to that. So there's 2 years at the 4%. Then I'm going to work up here. We have encumbrances assigned and committed, and semi. Encumbrances are just nothing more than reservations of equity. We have a contract that the board enters into. For instance, a prime example would be the contract with Lurch, Vinci & Higgins, your auditing firm. You enter into this contract, so you're committing the funds. But of course, we can perform the services until after the year end. And that's why it becomes a reservation or an equity encumbrance item. Those roll into the subsequent year's budget, and then that's how you expend those funds. Capital lease is just $31,000, the remaining piece on a capital lease that remains unspent. The next item is new that you wouldn't see in last year's report, and that's the unemployment compensation. As I indicated to you, now this is being reported in your general operating fund. So that's the balance that was sitting in unemployment, unspent, and it's reserved for that specific purpose, future unemployment claims. I'm going to skip the excess surplus numbers because through the progression we'll talk about maintenance reserve. So maintenance reserve is the combination of both, whether or not it's undesignated or designated, is $700,000. You have a piece that is designated or put into your subsequent year budget, which is the current budget that we're in. So of the $700,000, which is the combination of 372 and the 327, the $327,000 is currently being utilized in your 2021 budget, meaning that you have a balance going forward of the 372, which is available. Capital reserve, which is obviously used for capital improvements of the facility. That number has increased as well. We started the year with $2.1 million in capital reserve. And through your board resolution that you do every June, gives you the ability to fund from excess surplus that's generated during the year of another roughly $3 million. So now your ending capital reserve balance is $3,423,000. There are limitations there, but your limitation is almost $40 million based on your Long Range Facility Plan. So you're not coming anywhere near that maximum amount. And of the grand total of capital reserve, obviously, you can see the $162,000 is being designated or utilized in your 21-22 budget. So as we go through this progression, you're left with the finale here, and that is really the excess surplus. So last year's excess surplus is the amount that's designated, and that's the $1,513,000. So that $1,513,000 is being utilized in your 21-22 budget that we're in. And the excess surplus, which will be utilized as a revenue when you develop your 22-23 budget, is now the $1.2 million. And this is done by resolution that you do in June. And of course, then the administration goes through, and the way these resolutions are written, they're written specifically to allow flexibility for the board and the administration to determine where are those excess proceeds in the best spot? Are they best in the maintenance, a capital reserve, or in the excess? So those are the results of operation. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that.
Paul,
Sure.
considering this audit and considering what we're going to have in capital reserve and understanding the project we have slated that we just had an open bid for, do you see any issues with us awarding those bids?
No, I don't.
Thank you.
Yeah, because what's going to happen is again, the numbers aren't going to change. You're also going to have an audit sum that needs to be transmitted, and that's going to happen before the end of December. And that's really for the state. You notify the state as to what the values and the equity balances are, and they plug that in for the budgeting purposes. So no, I don't see any reason why you couldn't. So the last thing then, if there are no questions on the fund balance side of it or the equity side of it, it's just reporting on the auditor's management report on the administrative findings and compliance. And, you know, I am happy to say that this year, I think if you flip to the last page, we do not have any comments or recommendations to report, which is an accomplishment again in itself. Obviously, there's no evidence of fraud or illegal acts. Obviously, they would have been highlighted. So outstanding job. I think the whole team deserves, you know, the accolades for that particular result. Not easy to do.
Yeah, and since I'm not going to be here, I'm just going to take the opportunity to say, starting with Emilio, who does a lot of the accounting and the day-to-day activities in my office, but the entire business office and the entire administration and at the school level, everything from student activities to the petty cash to all the purchase orders that are processed. It's definitely a team effort, and we're really, really happy. And, you know, thank you for letting me leave on a good note. Appreciate it.
Paul, of the audits that you've done this year over the last few years, what's the percentage of them that have no recommendation?
It's certainly below 20%. It's very difficult to have, especially in the size of the district, the complexity of the district you have here. And I think that's always something that you have to take into consideration. I do some small districts that are one school, 300 children, you know, $5-6 million budget. I mean, those are a lot easier to get your hands around from the financial side of it and keep everything in line. You know, you're talking a $75 million operating budget here with all the various schools. And that's where a lot of, believe it or not, the problems come in, because it's easy for that person to control the administrative office. But when you start talking about student funds at the particular schools, hard to control, hard to monitor. Yeah, I think it speaks for itself. And even here in Summit, when we first started, boy, we must have had almost 20 recommendations, significant deficiencies, almost a deficit. So it was almost, you know, from one end of the spectrum, now all of a sudden to the other end of the spectrum. And I always say it when I go to these meetings, you know, we talk about, you know, well-run districts and what's the common thread of a well-run district. I think a lot of it has to do, obviously, you have to have the right people and the right leadership, continuity, longevity. All of those things kind of meld together and provide that stability. And I'm lucky enough to have it in a few of my districts, but I also have some that are drastically in the opposite direction. So I think Summit is very lucky for the period of what you had here with leadership.
Okay.
Yeah, and on my way out, I mean, I'd like to wish Lou obviously the best. I haven't been able to do this publicly, but you know, it's funny. I was just kind of reflecting on it a little bit, and you know, Lou. I actually met Lou in his first job, believe it or not, in schools, and now I'm coming full circle with him on his last job. Now I'm still going to be working, and that I don't lose retiring, but so I mean, I feel blessed. I mean, it was certainly a rewarding relationship, professional relationship. I really do. And it's turned into a real friendship over time. And I just wish him and his family the best and in their future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Happy holidays, everyone. Good night.
Okay, we're getting closer to being back on the normal agenda here, so I'm supposed to say some stuff, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll turn it over to the superintendent. Got some teachers here, we need to get out of here, so we're going to work quickly to get back on schedule. So this month, I am happy to highlight a wonderful program at Summit High School, our Unified Sports Program. This is my absolute favorite program in all of Summit Public Schools. The joy it brought me the first time I attended a game is the joy you dream about feeling when you start learning to be an educator. Sponsored by Special Olympics of New Jersey, Unified Sports Program provides valuable athletic opportunities for students with and without disabilities to train and compete on the same team. The Unified basketball season is indeed starting soon. Our coaches are currently preparing the rosters of students to participate this winter. The Unified program promotes teamwork, sportsmanship, school spirit, friendship, respect, and empathy in an inclusive environment, which has spread well beyond the basketball court. I believe we have more interest in the program than we can actually fully support from our general education students. Over the last few years, Summit Public Schools has launched Unified basketball and soccer, a Unified club at the high school, and a Unified physical education program at the middle school. We are all proud to see these programs reflect the district's mission, as well as one of our goals, to continue to foster a culturally inclusive educational environment that values diversity and equity within its climate operations, curricula, and programs. It is important for us as educational leaders to provide an environment and opportunities for all students to feel included and that they belong. And the Unified Sports is a perfect example of this. It stands as the very example of equity in education. Every student gets what they need. We are all looking forward to the upcoming basketball season and thank the coaches and the parents and the volunteers who are involved in the program as well. Mark your calendars. The first two home games are February 1st and February 3rd at 4 p.m. in the high school auxiliary gym. And lastly, I wish you all a happy holiday. Superintendent.
Thank you, President Bonner. Just very quickly, Lou, I've been right alongside you here for this retirement tour over the last several months.
I thought it was over.
So very quickly, no one here is surprised by all the accolades and praise you've been receiving. You're going to be missed personally and professionally, and I just want to thank you myself, and good luck.
Thanks.
And I'm just going to open my remarks by the SEF, thanking you again on behalf of the board, the administration, the teachers, and most of all our students. It's just a big wow, like everything that you do for us, the amount of contributions you give to our students and our programs every year, twice a year, and your willingness to always be open to new ideas and support us with those is very commendable. We thank you. We couldn't do everything we do without you, so thank you very, very much. All right, before we move on to our new hires and recognize them, just a couple of comments and highlights here. Recently here at the primary centers in Summit, our tech coaches have collaborated with the kindergarten classroom teachers to implement various coding activities into their classrooms. This again is supporting our STEAM initiative. From our generosity from our SEF and our tech coaches with our media specialists, we're creating curriculum that includes age-appropriate lessons with some innovative tools. Our young scholars are working hands-on to develop critical thinking and problem-solving skills. Excellent that we're working it all the way down into our primary centers. At Washington Elementary School, the hard work and preparation for the mosaic and the cafeteria is finally complete. This project began in 2019 and was put on pause due to the pandemic. They are very, very happy to finish the project, and they're sticking with their theme of "We choose happy." They're very thrilled to see the finished product. It really does look amazing. I encourage anybody who has the opportunity to go see it. It's outstanding. All of the students contributed to it. I'd like to thank Ms. Woodruff, who has spearheaded the project, and the artist who helped facilitate this project. Thank you to him, very talented individual. And I want to thank the parent volunteers, maintenance team, Vince Inzello, and head custodian Walter Vargas, and again, as well as the SEF and PTO for their contributions and grants on that project. In the world of athletics, Laura Cota was named cross-country runner of the year in Union County and third team All-State. Very impressive. And after winning the state championship, the varsity boys soccer finished 14th, ranked 14th in the state by NJ.com. Congratulations. And their head varsity soccer coach, Mr. Ben Stewart, was awarded Coach of the Year by NJ.com. Congratulations to Mr. Stewart. And we are in full swing with all of our winter athletic season. This past week, Principal Grimaldi and I had the pleasure and honor of watching our high school chamber choir and chamber orchestra perform for the Rotary and Alliance Club. It's a holiday tradition at a luncheon that goes on every year, and this year was even that much more special because it was in person. They did an outstanding job, led by Dan King and Elizabeth Sato, and I just want to congratulate all of them. It was really terrific to see it. They sounded great, of course, very, very impressive, and it really, as Ms. Grimaldi said, it really makes you feel like it's the start of the holiday season once you see our youngsters performing so well. And then a couple of announcements. The middle school holiday concert will be on Tuesday, December 14th at 6:30 p.m. And our 8th grade holiday concert follows at 8 p.m. I'm sorry, the 7th grade is at 6:30 and the 8th grade is at 8 p.m. And on Wednesday, December 15th at 7:30 p.m. will be the high school concert. So we encourage everyone to come out for that. And final reminder, the last day before our winter break is December 23rd. It will be a single session day, and we will be returning on Monday, January 3rd. So happy holidays, safe holidays for everyone. And with that, Mr. Bonner, I'd like to make a motion to move agenda item 11, personnel.
Absolutely. I
And
think we have some teachers here we need to talk about.
We do. Do you have something?
yeah, just one correction. Make sure that as you're looking at the agenda on page 7 under personnel, item F3, Marisol Rodriguez, that is going to move to G. It's going to become item G4 because that is part of the retirements. Other than that, we're good to go with everything on the addendum.
Thank you. Sort of going full circle tonight as we celebrate the ending of a career here in Summit. We're welcoming some of our newest and best into the district. So when I call your name, please, if you could just stand and I'll say a few words about some of our new hires joining our team. Cindy here? Hi, Cindy. Cindy Alulima will be a social worker at Jefferson Elementary School. Cindy has her bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in social work, both from Rutgers University. Cindy comes to Summit with over 13 years of experience, most recently from Roselle Public Schools. Sarah Arenal holds a bachelor's in child development from Tufts University and a master's in special education from New Jersey City University. Sarah joined Summit with over 20 years of experience, most recently working at Wilson Primary Center as a long-term preschool teacher substitute, which has become a tenure-track position. Welcome. Jacqueline Luloyan will be a learning disabilities teachers consultant at Jefferson Primary School. Jacqueline has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in psychology from Boston University and her master's in special education from Caldwell University. She comes to Summit with over 10 years experience, most recently from the Harding Township School District. Brooke Merrill is going to be a special education teacher at Lawton C. Johnson Middle School. Brooke has a bachelor in elementary education and English and a master's in applied behavioral analysis, both from College of St. Elizabeth. Brooke is joining Summit with 5 years of experience, most recently from Perth Amboy Public Schools. And Catherine Patrone will be a math teacher at Summit High School. Catherine has a Bachelor of Arts in Mathematics from the College of New Jersey and a Master's of Education in Curriculum and Instruction from the American College of Education. Catherine comes to Summit with 4 years of experience, most recently from Randolph High School. And those are our new hires that we will be voting on this evening. Voice.
It's kind of a foregone conclusion. And Derek, if you want to bring more great teachers from Perth Amboy on with you, we'll take them. Just bring them on. We'll take them. So can I get a motion for? So moved. A-to-S.
Second. Okay, on the resolution. Ms. Miller,
Absolutely.
where am I? Vice President Cólon.
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Mr. Cho,
Yes.
Ms. Justice,
Yes.
Ms. Primack,
Yes.
and President Bonner.
Yes, and welcome to the district.
Now,
Congratulations.
Okay. I'm going to take a 1 minute and 30-second break. Or if you want to go, now is your time. Okay, we got some time to make up, so we are going to get going.
I got a repeat report, don't worry.
One of them.
Yeah.
Didn't need calcium.
Yeah, no.
okay,
Right.
let's rock and roll.
So I need to get a motion to approve the superintendent report.
I'll move it.
And we don't have any HID reports tonight. We have previous reports. So A through C, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, on the roll. Mr. Cho,
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Ms. Primack,
Yes.
Ms. Justice,
Yes.
Vice President Cologne,
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
and President Bonner.
Yes.
Motion's carry.
All right, committee reports.
Yes, very
Mr.
good.
Cologne.
Oh.
Wait, correction. Page break in there.
Jumping in front of Donna. You
Ms. Miller, all yours.
Education.
They met.
Education
Next.
before operation. Okay, the Education Committee met on December 15th at 3 p.m. We met for 70 minutes. Joining me were the usual and special guest, Superintendent Huff, Ms. McCann, Jan Cho, and Lolita Justice. And our special guest was Doreen Babis, the Director of Special Services. And that is what took the bulk of our meeting. Doreen Babis provided a very thorough update on our special education instruction and supports. And the committee was able to review all of district programming, which serves our students from pre-K through 21 years of age through a broad variety of offerings delivered in a variety of formats. The committee believes the district's services and the dedicated professionals who provide daily instruction and support directly and positively impact student achievement. They're doing a beautiful, beautiful job in a variety of ways. Just some highlights. There are just too many good things going on to mention. Some of them we just take for granted, but some highlights already highlighted by Mr. Bonner is our unified program. It continues to thrive and grow. Our partnership with Rutgers, which the committee reviewed earlier this year in fall, you may remember, continues to do well. It brings positive support not only to our Tier 3 students, but really to everybody in our school community. Our middle school and high school services draws, also I think elementary, I neglected to say elementary, services draw students from other districts who either do not have the same type of service in their district or know that our services are just really terrific and they pay tuition to be with us. And the team is working on a variety of continued improvements. There's a child study team manual in the works. We're opening a high school store, creating a printer lab at the high school and a greenhouse at the community center. These are just small highlights, but I think the committee will certainly be able to share my sentiment that for a district our size, we're doing equal to and better than those who are like us. And the group is really to be congratulated. And our students are being very well served. We next spoke about SEF grants. That was a presentation here, so I don't need to take you through that. We recommended those grants to you, and thank you for approving them. And thank you, of course, to the SEF. We also then went through some course proposals. One of the benefits of having a district that's so interested in keeping curriculum fresh, one of the benefits of having some new supervisors and a growing group of teachers in our midst is that new course proposals are always being discussed. So we have a few. One is a theater design and technology course. We have a beautiful and very renowned theater program, performing arts program in our schools. However, those who want to do the more technical aspects of the performing arts really didn't have as much dedicated to them. This is going to take care of that, and we're pleased to tell you about that. There is also a program design in computer science, and that is adding kind of a capstone to some courses for senior year. Did I get that right, Jen? Senior year? And we're very happy again now to have a fuller breadth of courses allowed all the way until our students are in their senior year. And then there's a course name change, computer graphics to digital art and design. The course remains the same. We're just changing the name to be, I think, current and modern. The committee unanimously supports and recommends those additional courses when they come before us. We next meet on January 6th at 3 p.m. Anything that I missed? Questions? Now it's operation.
Mr. Cólon.
Here you are. Thank you, Donna. So our committee, the Operations Committee, met on December 1st from 3:30 to 5:15. In attendance, the board members were myself, Jan Cho, Melanie Cohn, and the administration team, Lou Pepe, Emilio Torres, Angelo Palumbo, Michael Martino, and our superintendent was also at the meeting. We covered a few items with respect to the current financial state of the district, and two in particular, which were favorable. One, the potential to apply for a school development authority grant to offset approximately 2/3 of the costs related to the remediation work in the middle school for the mold that we had earlier this year. And so the total cost for that remediation work was a little bit over $150,000. The grant that we would apply for is for approximately $100,000. And so we are requesting that the board approve that grant application in today's meeting. The second item that we discussed regarding this year's budget related to food service P&L, and I'm happy to report that we are running ahead of budget. So we've actually generated revenues of approximately $57,000 year to date with our food services. We were at a modest deficit for that last year. So that's a good outcome this year. For next year, we discussed the budget process and some items to monitor with respect to that process. One, healthcare costs, which are on the rise throughout the country, state, and potentially the district. So that's something that the business office is focused on in terms of managing that expense going forward. Student transportation, we've talked about that in this forum over the past several months. And so transportation costs are rising excessively. And so that is another item that we're looking at closely, the administration is looking at closely with respect to budgeting and managing for the coming year and beyond. We then moved to facilities, and we discussed the major project that is in scope for facilities right now, which is the HVAC system for this building, including the replacement of all of the existing rooftop equipment and potentially including full HVAC for the entire building, including the cafeteria and some classrooms that don't have HVAC today. So that the scope
of that work remains TBD. However, there have been 6 qualified contractor bids that have been received. The good news regarding those bids is that they were generally below the expected cost and the original forecasted cost for the project. And so with that information, as well as with the audit information that was presented today, which is confirming our capital reserve account, as well as confirming the receipt of the ESSER grants that we've talked about in previous meetings, there will be a formal proposal put to the board with respect to the scope of work for that HVAC project in next month's meeting. Correct?
That's correct.
Yes. The second facilities initiative that is substantial and impactful for our students that's on the table right now is the Lawton C. Johnson Summit Middle School field upgrade. And so if you recall, that would be installing a track, adding a second T-ball field, upgrading the softball field, and adding a new soccer and field hockey field. So really maximizing that space at the middle school. The plans are largely complete, and so now we get to the fun part of discussing the funding for that project with the Joint Fields Committee, as well as the various users of that space, including organizations that are outside the school district. So those conversations will be happening and hopefully will be addressed with respect to moving forward on that initiative. The committee also reviewed several long-term investments to enhance the educational environment and experience of our students. These were conceptual projects, and they included an upgrade to the space that we're sitting in right now. And so an upgrade to the media center and converting it into a media center / multifunctional STEAM lab space. And so that was discussed. We also discussed in the middle school a STEAM lab, cafeteria expansion, as well as that question that seems to come up every year, an HVAC system for the middle school. And so all of those projects were discussed. I wouldn't say that they were reviewed in detail because again, we're at the conceptual stage, and these are really large, longer term investments that the district is starting to flush out. And so stay tuned with respect to that. We discussed the 2021 audit, which was presented by our auditor earlier, which confirmed no material findings. And so the issuance of the report will be forthcoming. However, the good news has already been given. And I asked the question of our auditor purposely with respect to seeing an audit without recommendations, because I personally have never seen one as a CFO for 10 years. And so this first, I thought it was a unicorn, quite frankly, that didn't really exist. And so that is an exceptional outcome. And so thank you, Lou, for overseeing the work of the district and achieving that outcome with your team. That is all I have. Is there anything I may have missed?
Just one note, Michael, on the high school HVAC, I would just add that the main and auxiliary gym are not part of the scope.
Yes. Thank you for that. Yeah, both gyms are out of scope. Yes, thanks. Anything else? They're on board? Nope. Okay.
Policy committee did not meet, correct, Mr. Cho? Or you did not meet this month?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. So there were no agenda items for the policy committee review, no new policies or regulations, just the second reading from the prior month's agenda, and the policy committee will next meet on Monday, January 10th.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Primat, communication.
The Communications Committee met December 1st for 35 minutes. In addition to myself, I was joined by Chris Barr, Lolita Justice, Lauren Callender, Doug Orr, Scott Huff. We once more looked at sort of the current, what are now sort of the post-implementation and current projects, because they're running together since they are now a true series. So congratulations to Ms. Callender for a really successful and productive series, including the parent newsletter and focuses on Summit teachers and staff members. And you got got a little preview of what's coming ahead, unified basketball. They're a very engaging mix of pictures, videos, written content, very accessible and relatable, and they meaningfully are connecting individuals and programming within the district with the mission and the focus areas and the initiatives. So they continue to just be wonderful. We also got to see a brag sheet. This calendar partnered with actually our technology coach from the elementary schools, Matt Schachtel, who has a background in graphic design. We have so many staff members with just a whole range of talents outside of what they are here to do, and thank you for sharing those talents with us. So it's a very eye-catching visual highlighting the many athletic accomplishments of students in fall sport. And I think the hope is to create a brag sheet at the conclusion of each season. Really, they're just great. And in general, I think the committee was very pleased with the wide array of the topics, the backgrounds, the platforms being used that deliver all the wonderful work that's going on, and also to hear from the administration how engaged the actual staff members are contributing at coming up with ideas, at partnering and sharing their talents to make these things happen. So that was just very gratifying to hear, and so kudos. We discussed the pre-K kindergarten registration, just the various communications, the outlets, how, who and why and how people are being reached to know about the registration, the tours. There were some tours again, I believe. So very exciting. And the committee was very satisfied that Summit families, there's a wide variety of ways to access that information about how to get your students signed up. We also, although at this point you have all seen it, the vaccination clinic information, it has gone out. We discussed it before. Just again, the ongoing efforts hosting the clinic, the follow-up there, not just for the 5 to 11 crowd. It's also they have the Pfizer vaccine for whether you need your first, second, or third dose if you are in the 12 and up category. And so great communication and the importance of effectively making sure that people know throughout the community where to go and how to get your vaccine and your booster. So excellent to facilitate that. And then we discussed some community buzz. So there had, sort of shortly after the green light on the 5 to 11, some, conversations, some questions arising about masks, back to that. But those conversations did sort of take a little bit of a downturn, I think, following the Omicron emergence. However, the real focus of our conversation was, again, just we're very pleased with the administration's timely updates to everyone on COVID protocols and policies. And we have every confidence this will continue. And that's really the most important part, is that you all have done such a wonderful job at really timely, effective communication of what has to be done here. So that's great. There are no recommendations of the board. We will be meeting January 5th at 8:45. Anything from my fellow committee members? Any questions?
When is kindergarten registration? When does that start? I mean, I know you know. I don't know. I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't recall the exact date. We put out the memo. It's going to be, anybody on my team remember the dates?
December 17th, we're sending out information about kindergarten.
We're sending out information next week and then the following week on the 17th for registration that's going to be held, I believe, in February.
I think the end of January.
End of January, beginning of February.
But there are also our press releases involved. The information's distributed to daycares, to preschools. It's sort of got a whole system of trying to make sure, that those who have not yet joined the Summit School family will know exactly how to do so.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Primack. Before I go, real briefly, I want to recognize our Summit High School students are back in the back, following along on our agenda. The committees is where the magic happens on the board. They're comprised of 3 members of the board, so a minority. So everything that goes on there and the decisions that are proposed are brought here to the board for a vote. So all the work happens during the month as our committees meet in groups of 3 again with the superintendent and the cabinet. And then any recommendations, any changes to policy, any updates, any of those things that have to get approved by the 7 of us get recommended there, and they come to us for a vote. So that's how that works. If you all have an addendum, I'm going to report out on negotiations right now. When we approved personnel, it may have slipped by everyone, but we did approve item R, which is a recommendation by the negotiations committee to the board to adopt the memorandum of agreement between the Summit Board of Education and the Summit Principals Association. So when was that, Tuesday? Yes. We met with the committee met on Tuesday. Thanks to you, Michael, for pinch hitting and getting us through that meeting. But I am proud to announce that we did reach an agreement that night. Rob literally drove to my workplace today so we could get the signature on it. So far. I offered him lunch, but he turned me down. So I signed it, and so it is official. So we are very pleased as a committee and a board with the outcome. And we are also pleased that our negotiations with the Summit principals resulted in a more favorable outcome for our Summit supervisors as well. And so that information was conferred to them today. And so we are all very pleased with the results of all of those negotiations. So thank you to everyone who worked so hard to get that done. That's what I have for negotiations committee. Any liaison reports? Did anyone liaise in the past 30 days? Vanessa Primate.
Well, I liaised with SEF, and you've seen the results, so I did get a preview. I just want to, first of all and foremost, thank the grant writers. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort, the research, the work. There's a lot of follow-up and due diligence for the grants. I know we're a little behind schedule, but I do want to thank them for really, despite, this is still, the return to normal is still a challenging year. Our educators' plates are very, very full, and for them to have taken the time, and again, to have seen the grants, as I mentioned to SEF at that meeting, not quite so COVID specific anymore, really reflecting the pillars of athletics and academics and the arts and leadership and community. And what was also lovely is some of those grants involved collaborations between high school students and younger students. And so to see that sort of coming back was just incredibly, incredibly gratifying. It really, it made me feel that we were really in the right direction and in the right road. So thank you to the grant writers for all of that time and dedication and creativity.
Awesome. Thank you, Ms. Primack. Any other liaising? No liaising. Awesome. Well, we're about to make up that time. That time of year where people are trying to figure out where to get their COVID tests so they could go on their vacations over the break. And so I anticipate a quick public comment section. But as always, and for the final time in his tenure, Mr. Pepe will now read the ground rules.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anyone wishing to speak shall first seek recognition from the presiding officer, that is Mr. Bonner. Once that is given, please step to the center of the room to the microphone. In an audible tone, please give your name and address for the record. Please confine your comments to 3 minutes or less unless additional time is afforded to you from the board president. Please address the board as a whole and not any individual on the board.
Thank you, sir. Can I get any public comment for items on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment for items not on the agenda. Yes, ma'am. Good to see you back. Haven't seen you.
Yeah, I've seen you by Zoom. So good evening.
Tilt that microphone down for yourself.
Yes.
There we go.
There. Paola Costa, 5 Nassau Drive, Summit. Good evening. I have to confess that at first I was terrified of Mr. Lou Pepe. I still am, but a little less now. Just as I started to understand better the complexities of how a school district is managed, I got to appreciate the role Mr. Pepe has played in not only running our school district, but running it extraordinarily well. Mr. Pepe takes pride in the fact that Summit has never exceeded the 2% cap, and rightly so. And although not without sacrifices, that fact never has diminished the quality of education our children receive. I learned that if there was a fiscally responsible way of doing something, no matter how difficult, Mr. Pepe will always find a way to get it done. I never knew of a promise that he wouldn't keep or made loosely. No sugarcoating any facts or figures, and more often saying not yet instead of never. I had the chance to witness how committed he is in doing his job with the most utter respect and professionalism, so much so that it was precisely because of his care of every little detail, that I knew our schools were prepared for the changes required to face a pandemic. His quick decision-making made possible that our kids had enough devices to keep learning during a prolonged shutdown, despite some hiccups, I agree, but we managed. It was personally, for me, moving, and I was very thankful because of his expertise and quick response that our district got the money to provide our schools with free lunch and breakfast that were for a few months the main meals many of our most in need children would have. I was a bit in shock when I hear the news of Mr. Pepe's retirement, but I know that if Mr. Derek Jess has his approval, we are in good hands. So welcome. And there's nothing left for me to say that muchas gracias and happy retirement.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Costa. I appreciate that. Anything else, items on the, not on the agenda from anybody else in the room? Going once, going twice, closed. Remainder of the meeting, Mr. Pepe, we are now 4 minutes ahead.
There we go. I like that.
Can I get a motion for approval of last month's board minutes, please?
So moved.
Second.
On the roll, Ms. Primack,
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Vice President Cólon,
Yes.
Ms. Justice,
Yeah.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Cho,
Yes.
and President Bonner.
Yes.
In the books.
Alrighty, school board operation, items A through P, which includes O and P on your addendum. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
On the roll, Mr. Cho,
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Vice President Cólon,
Yes.
Ms. Primack,
Yes.
Ms. Justice,
Yeah.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
and President Bonner.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion's carry.
Excellent. We've already done personnel, so we're skipping ahead to second reading of 2 policies. Can I get a motion?
Move.
Second.
Okay, on the roll, Vice President Cólon,
Yes.
Ms. Primack,
Yes.
okay, Mr. Cho,
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Justice,
Yes.
Ms. Miller,
Yes.
and President Bonner.
Yes.
That is also in the books.
Excellent. Last item on the open session, finance. Time to make sure the school keeps running. Can I have a motion?
Second.
Okay. Last of the finance for me.
Yeah.
On the roll, Ms. Miller,
Yes.
Vice President Cólon,
Yes.
Ms. Primack,
Yes.
Mr. Cho,
Yes.
Ms. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Justice,
Yeah.
and President Bonner.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, my official last meeting. We will pay the bills.
Thank you, everyone. For those of you in the audience, we now need to go into closed session. We will be back sometime before tomorrow morning, if you want to stay. If you don't, now might be a good time to head out. So I need a motion to move into closed session.
So moved.
I get a second.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're in.